Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. We talk about the problems people face in their day to day lives. Let's start with the video.
I, female 21, have always known that my boyfriend, Ray, male 21, didn't have the best financial situation. We met in high school, and coming from an upper middle class family, I was the one buying him lunch, clothes, and some of the other stuff he needed for school and college. And a lot of the time, he repaid me for almost all of it too through the jobs he'd take. This made me believe that Ray was the one to keep his head held high and was very smart, hardworking. I always thought to myself he'd make it big when we graduated from high school, and it all sort of became true when he got into the same college as I was in through a scholarship. I was so proud of him the day I found out, and our relationship just became stronger from there onwards. Nothing really suspicious went on all these years. Ray's financial situation definitely got better, but of course, like I said, him being from an extremely underprivileged background, it was nowhere close to the financial stability I had, and one that my family expected. That is where the problem first started. My family didn't like the fact that Ray wasn't from the same financial background as we were. Growing up, that's how my family had always been. They always taught me to be around kids who were equal to me or more than me rather than someone who was less than. Being the youngest and a rebel, I did the complete opposite. I hung out with all and everyone I possibly could, the rich, the poor, the upper class, the middle class. How much someone had in their pocket didn't matter to me. All that mattered was how much love someone had in their heart. That is exactly why I had fallen in love with Ray, and I always knew my parents wouldn't like the fact that I dated Ray, so of course, the day I introduced him to my family over Christmas dinner, during the first year of undergraduate school, the interrogation began. They questioned Ray about everything, and by the end of it all, poor Ray was left feeling awkward and unwanted, and my family was set on their opinion that they absolutely hated Ray. That day, I decided that I wanted to keep my distance with them. But of course, you know how it is with family. I couldn't go completely out of contact with them. I spoke to them here and there, met them at important family gatherings where Ray would be present too. They treated him cordially and honestly for the time being. That was more than enough for me. Years passed this way. Ray and I graduated from undergrad college and have embarked on our journey of living like adults. It's definitely not been an easy one. Both Ray and I, being freshers, we don't get paid very much, so when our anniversary came around, I didn't expect Ray to get me a huge gift because I couldn't get him anything either. So you guys can only imagine how shocked I was when he did not only take me out for a beautiful date night, but also proposed to me with a gorgeous ring which looked very expensive and very familiar. I said yes to the proposal, of course, but I immediately had questions about the ring. So I started asking him about it the day after the proposal. My interrogation was met with avoidance, denial, and then annoyance. Ray's reaction was very unlike him, and I started to get very suspicious. We argued, and under a state of anger, I gave him back the ring and drove myself to my parents' place because my mom had invited me over for dinner. Well, I get there, and my mom notices the upset look on my face and starts asking me about it. I couldn't really hold it inside myself, so I pulled out my phone, showed her a picture of the ring, and told her everything that went down. The look on my mom's face, as if she had seen a ghost, told me that something very wrong had happened. She didn't say a word after that. She seemed like she was in an absolute rush. She just pulled out her phone and called up my older sister, Emma, and I felt my heart falling in my stomach as my mom uttered the words, "We found your ring." It immediately clicked to me. The ring that belonged to my sister Emma, who too had gotten engaged a couple of weeks ago. Ray and I were invited to the engagement party. I immediately figured out where he stole the ring from. I began crying from that point because I was truly disgusted at what Ray did. I started calling him and blowing up his phone because I knew my family, who already had so much hate for him, wouldn't leave him and things wouldn't end well for him. I kept calling and he went completely MIA. I knew I couldn't do much except for calling. So I just left everything on his luck from there onwards because my mom called the cops on him, who didn't take long to get a hold of him. Now, Ray and his family are blaming me and my family for what they did because apparently Ray was just trying to do a nice thing for me, but I'm not so sure of that anymore. So, what should my next step be here? AITA? A lot has happened since I made my last post. I'm not sure if I'll be able to fit all of it in this one update, so I'll surely be making a second update for everything that has been happening. Well, the cops arrested Ray from his workplace. Things aren't looking too well for him. I'm still being bombarded with texts from him and his family, pressuring me to get my family to not press charges. Unfortunately, though, as much as I want to do that, I can't. I know what Ray did was very wrong, even if it was a one-off situation. My parents haven't been saying much, so hasn't my sister. Everything just feels quiet, scary, and heartbreaking, mainly because I feel terrible about the fact that Ray sort of just proved whatever my parents had said, thought about him. I know they're very disappointed in me and my choice, and so am I. After so many conversations with Ray and him knowing full well how my parents were and how much I just wanted to show them that we could make a life for us without their support, it just felt like everything came crashing down. It still sends shivers down my spine how coldly my very loving sister spoke to me when she found out about everything that happened. The way my mom talked about how much in panic my sister was just broke my heart into a million pieces. I wouldn't blame them a bit if they end up putting Ray in jail for all of this because, like I said, none of what he did was excusable at the slightest. Right now, there's not much to say other than that. I know it's only time that will unravel whatever is outside this quiet, dark, and scary tunnel. I'll surely keep you guys updated about it all. Hi everyone. A lot has been going on lately, which is why I haven't been able to update a whole lot. Well, for starters, my parents reached out to me and called me over because we needed to talk. When I went over to their place, they sat me down along with my sister and her fiancé. I expected things to be an absolute mess, but I was surprised when everyone around me was surprisingly calm and composed. My parents and sister also went as far as to comfort me after they saw me in an utter state of panic. When I realized that this wasn't them ganging up on me and them genuinely wanting to talk, I calmed down a bit, and after that happened, we got to speaking. My sister told me that after thinking about it all, she decided to not press any charges on Ray. Seeing that I was the only one shocked at my sister's decision, I realized Emma probably had this conversation with my parents beforehand. Emma patted me on my back, telling me that the fact that she got her ring back, which costs a lot more than what I thought, by the way, she realized that she didn't want to uproot the life of a guy who was as young as I was for a one-off incident. I was honestly speechless, especially at the fact that my mom and dad both agreed with what she was saying. I immediately broke down and we just shared a moment of silence where my dad confessed to me that he sort of understood why Ray might have done what he did. I'm not sure what he meant by that, but the comfort and assurance was very much needed. Emma and my mom also told me that what they did wasn't especially for me. It was out of a concern they had for Ray. We hugged, comforted, and apologized to each other, and I left their place. Well, that happened, and then I also got the chance to meet Ray, finally after so long. The meeting was very intense. Ray broke down, apologizing to me immediately as soon as he saw me. He confessed to me how he had only done all of this to impress my parents, apparently. It didn't really make any sense to me, just as it probably wouldn't to many of you guys either. I told him that regardless of what and why he did what he did, He really owes a thorough apology to Emma, her fiance, and my parents, and multiple sessions at a relationship counseling for me to even consider reconciliation for our relationship, let alone considering engagement and marriage. He told me that he already had started on the apologies and would work on finding a therapist. That's all I have currently. I know a lot of you might not be happy with this update, but I know giving this a fair shot is the bare minimum I can do. If my parents can forgive him, I think I can at least try to get him not to repeat his mistakes. I'm also aware of the fact that whatever happens ahead of this is fully my responsibility, which I'm ready to take the expense of. I mean, after all this heartbreak, what have I got to lose? Nothing really. Hi everyone. I posted on this subreddit a long time ago and I took a break from it all because I wanted to focus on rebuilding my relationship not only with Ray, but also my family. Well, thankfully, all of it was a success because of therapy, of course, and also because of the change in my family's outlook towards Ray. I'm not sure what happened, but the change in their hearts definitely helped Ray and I in feeling more understood and getting more warm towards my family. I think it's needless to say that Ray was under tremendous pressure to do better financially because he wanted to prove something to my family because of all the taunting and remarks. Our therapy sessions highlighted that and also made me aware of my mistakes, like not standing up enough for Ray, not being communicative enough, etc. All of these things were eye-opening and helpful to me and Ray to develop a stronger bond. It's been a year since everything happened, and I can still openly say that I'm not 100% trusting towards him yet. But at least I can also say that my trust for him isn't at 0% like it was when this all first started, and that is all that matters to me right now. We have a long way to go, but the fact that we even started this journey is what means the world to me. Thank you all for your heartwarming wishes and blessings. NTA, what a roller coaster ride this post was, but honestly, regardless of how the parents are, I still wished that they pressed charges because Ray isn't 12 or something, but of course, I don't have a big heart like them. I'm glad you got an opportunity to save your relationship with him. I hope you can build boundaries and communication with both Ray and your family. NTA, I guess Ray was going through some sort of identity crisis situation where he wanted to prove to your parents that he could make it big. It's still very inexcusable, and it was just terrible planning overall. It's good that you got into therapy and it helped. I have 3 kids, 8 and 1-year-old daughters and a 4-year-old son. My mother loves them all dearly, but I have noticed that she sort of ignores my son sometimes. It's not like she's doing it on purpose, and it only started after my youngest was born, but I don't like it. I mentioned this to my mom, and she immediately apologized. She said that she hates to admit it, but because he's the middle child, she forgets about him sometimes, especially since the baby. I decided to give her a chance since she seemed genuinely sorry. My husband and I had an emergency this morning and decided to drop off our kids with my mom, she offered. And then after we dealt with what happened, we were planning on having dinner with my parents since it's Thanksgiving anyways. We usually have big dinners with the entire family, but the timing wasn't great this year, so my mom was really desperate. Well, the second my husband and I got to my parents' house, I noticed that my daughters were very happy while my son was sitting in the corner crying. I asked my mom what happened, and she told me that my son scribbled on my older daughter's drawing, and so she put him on time out. Either way, I went up to my son and asked him what was wrong. He was an absolute mess, but eventually told me that he got mad because Granny wasn't listening to him and didn't look at his drawings, and he even said he thinks she only likes his sisters. I asked my mom if this was true, and she laughed it off and jokingly said that while she didn't give him much attention, it doesn't mean that he should ruin his sister's work. I didn't laugh, and I was actually upset, and she noticed. She just said, that she's sorry and she'll try to be more attentive next time. She also said the same thing as last time about him being the middle child. I told her that she won't have to try next time because I'm not leaving the kids alone with her ever again. I then said Happy Thanksgiving and picked up my son, told my husband to grab our other kids, and we left. My mom kept begging us to stay for dinner since we promised and also said that she's sorry and what more do I want her to say? I just ignored her. My dad called me later saying that he understands my decision regarding the kids and would do the same, but I should have stayed for dinner. My mom had made a lot of food and was really looking forward to it, and I broke her heart. But she also keeps breaking my son's heart. I don't know. AITA? I can't sleep because of how conflicted I am. NTA, not at all. Because this will come to mean a lot to your son in the long run. That someone had his back. Even if he's too young to fully comprehend what is going on, this is the sort of thing that sticks with them. A boundary was set, and his emotions, mental well-being, and needs are being met by a parent. Neglect is horrible. Realizing you're not the favorite child is horrible. Being left out is horrible, especially when that's your grandmother. Trust me, this is a core memory in the making, something that will stick, especially if repeated. The good, not the bad. I say this from experience and how much this sort of shit mentally broke me, and that was just my relatives. Please stand by your son. Do not doubt your actions or second guess yourself. Please stay by his side, have his back, and give him love. NTA, your son is a little kid who's ignored by his grandmother because he's the middle child? Seriously? Your mom doesn't sound like she's sorry at all because her actions say otherwise, and her excuses are even worse. I also think it's stupid as hell that she couldn't spare a few minutes to look at the kid's drawings, but had no problem putting him on time out as soon as she saw he scribbled on his sisters. This happened back when me and my younger sister were both late teens or early 20s. I have ADD, which now isn't a thing anymore apparently, so I have whatever it's called now. And possibly on the autism spectrum. It's an ask 3 doctors and get 10 opinions kind of thing. The ADD was diagnosed very young, the autism fairly recently. I go with, I'm weird and quirky. I've always been sensitive to certain sounds. High-pitched and loud, sudden noises are especially unpleasant. Well, one of my sisters was very loud. She had to make her point and emphasized everything she said. I know she wasn't trying to be loud, but she never believed it when it was pointed out to her. This is where my dog comes in. He was a small dog, Sheba, and he had a citronella collar because he would bark at neighbors. For any that don't know, the collar releases a spray of a very strong citrusy smell anytime the dog barks. Dogs find it unpleasant. Most people do too. I would set the collar off before putting it on every few days to make sure it was working, so I knew exactly how loud something had to be to set it off. I knew my sister was louder than that. One day, my sister was playing around with my dog. She leaned over and said something like, "Who's a good boy?" And my pup's collar sprayed her right in the face. I was lucky enough to be present and just lost it. My sister got all huffy and said I was TAH for laughing, and my dog's collar was too sensitive. I still think that moment was the validation of years of telling her to stop yelling. Best part is that she got sprayed 2 more times after that. She then toned it down around my dog, so the bark collar worked. The story comes up every now and then in my family, and my sister still says I'm the AH. I'm still pretty sure I'm not. My sister didn't believe she yelled until she got sprayed in the face by my dog's bark collar. Needed to clarify. I knew how loud my sister was and that she would at some point set off the collar. I was just lucky enough to be there when she did. Also, the smell is very temporary, and my dog would just go somewhere else until the smell went away. Thank you for this, NTA, and I feel you. One of my issues with ADHD is an inability to filter out sounds. My brain has trouble following a conversation in loud environments. For example, because I can't distinguish the important stimulus, example, my companion's voice, from other stimuli in the same decibel range, example, people talking at the next table, music, dogs barking, etc. And if there's a loud person, it's all I can hear. Much like those who snore, it's the loudest who never believe they are loud. It's hilarious, and I wish it would happen to every loud person I